What's going on, everyone? You're watching another episode of Ash on Comics, and this is my special series that I'm doing on Tom King Batman. I call it a retrospective. It's basically me going back through Batman and the Tom King Batman and picking up kind of not where I left off, starting over, because I jumped off the bandwagon a long while ago, and I've missed a lot. And I still get it. And now his run is ending, and I haven't been really tracking what he's been doing, and this is just my attempt to kind of like put it all together. So here we start off, and we see a young Bane in his prison in Santa Prisca. He's eating rats. We don't know why he's in the prison. It's just a horrible place. The original Nightfall did it a lot better. Here, Tom King feels like he's just recapping the origin of Bane, but in the original one, man, it was really horrific, and it made you get this sense of why Bane is such a badass. We see in this story, Bane has captured Psycho Pirate, and he's using Psycho Pirate as a way of supplementing his venom, but he's no longer using. And Psycho Pirate, is sort of his like emotional vice, if you will. And then we see Bruce is consoling. He's trying to fix Gotham Girl from the last story. Her brother's dead. She's gone all traumatic. Everyone in Tom King stories goes ultra just PTSD, mental issues, whenever anything bad happens. So it doesn't surprise me that Gotham Girl is practically catatonic. And we get to the end of the first story, and I've truncated this, by the way. You're going to notice these are select slides. It's not the whole book, in an effort to try to keep this video down in length, because it's 7 issues. It's a big volume for a trade paperback, and I'm doing the trade paperbacks. I think as I get near the current run, I will go to single issues. Maybe we'll see how that goes. But we see at the end of the book, he rescues Catwoman, and the whole deal is, as you can see from the cover preview of the second issue here, that Batman is sort of recruiting his own version of a Suicide Squad, if you will. And he's going to go to Santa Prisca and get Psycho Pirate, because Psycho Pirate can fix Gotham Girl, apparently. So here, Batman gets to Santa Prisca. He gets shot down, somehow doesn't die, and we see the beginnings of the Tom King pretentiousness, his postmodern writing style, where he has a visual story going along, but he's got an overlay of a letter from Catwoman, basically writing to Bruce about all her feelings and, why she runs and what she thought of him as a little girl and all these things. And it's, in this particular book, it's not really that bad. It's only more noticeable in hindsight when you've read the more recent stuff that Tom King has done. You look back and you go, oh man, it was here all along. So Batman breaks in to Santa Prisca, gets there, and he's all, he takes on, hundreds of dudes. He gets into Bane. Bane tells him, he can't lift him up and break his back like he originally did because he's not on the Venom anymore, which I cry bullshit. It's just like, come on, look at this dude, still a monster. He could hold Batman up, but he breaks. Apparently, looks like he breaks his back here in this scene, just on the ground, and then he drags Batman off into his old prison. Batman wakes up, he staggers, and it's not real clear here. I'm thinking the whole time, well, it seems like Batman had his back broken by Bane. But, you can see, down in the lower right corner, Batman seems to be mobile. At first I thought he was just kind of using the water as floating, but then he does these things where he punches in the wall, makes these little pits that he can, I guess, grab it onto, prop himself up, and he sort of snaps his back, almost like someone, with a dislocated joint, you snap it back in place. I don't think your back works that way, but maybe that's all that happened. Maybe Bane just sort of dislodged something and he snapped. It's not really explained, but Batman's going through a lot of pain, and he's in the prison, and the water's rising. He's going to drown, but he breaks out because all he's got to do is use his little cuffs, and he breaks open the door. And it seemed all too easy, but what are you going to do? It's comics. Maybe that was part of Bane's plan. I don't know. And we find out that this was actually Batman's plan, and his little team, they broke it in. And now Batman's letting him in from the inside. His way of infiltrating was to essentially surrender to Bane and let Bane break his back. Total suicide mission. But it sort of works for the comic. And we see this repetitive thing where, Catwoman says, "What do we do now?" And Batman's like, "Now we break his damn back." And when I say it's repetitive, he's going to go on and on throughout the book about, "I'm going to break your damn back, Bane. I want to break your back." And it's when he says it like once, I'm like, okay. But as he says it over and over, I couldn't help but feeling this doesn't quite feel like Batman. And then we get this sort of past story of Batman having a confrontation with Catwoman. It says, then. And so we get, a little rehash of their past, and they chase on the rooftop, and we get, again, some foreshadowing of what we're going to see in the future with Tom King in their little banter, For example, here you see, "You tore your ACL in the fall. I know. You'll need surgery. The price you pay for always landing on your feet. You shouldn't have jumped. You knew I wouldn't make it. I knew you wouldn't make it. You might have told me." "I shouted. I didn't hear. Because you were running away. Because you were chasing me. You killed 237 people, Cat. I had to chase you. I killed 237 people, Bat. I had to run." "Enough." No. "Enough. You know what they'll do to me? They'll kill me. If you do this, they'll bring me in. 237 dead. What am I supposed to do? If you do this right now, between us, what's between us? That will be enough. What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do?" Now, I actually like this page. I like the relationship between Batman and Catwoman. I like the forbidden love. I like the fact that Batman's one true love is the one girl that he can't have. The one girl that doesn't fit in his world. She's a criminal. He's, a defender of justice. They are opposed. And it's a tragedy, right? Like, you want Batman to be happy. The same way you want Bruce Banner to be cured of his Hulk condition, right? It's a tragedy that he's going through. You want him, but that's what makes the story. Bruce Wayne going off and living happily ever after, well, that's the end of the story. Christopher Nolan tackled that in his Batman films, but that was because he ended his story. We want to see Batman be Batman. He can't really have a true, nuclear family relationship with Catwoman. And here, it works because it's not that. It's the classic Batman's in love with Catwoman. They're opposed, but the heart wants what the heart wants, and it's the Romeo and Juliet type scenario. It works because they're not together, and it works because you want to see them together. Now we get to this page, and when I talk about foreshadowing about the postmodern nonsense, look at this page here, and I was like, where do you follow? Where do you go? I get it, kind of looks cool. the computer rendered pipes with the characters running around. But it's so confusing on what you're supposed to read, and it's so wordy. It's just way too much self-impressed dialogue. This is where it's not terrible. I enjoyed this whole book. The purpose of this particular video isn't to trash on it. It's to kind of show you or remind everyone, if you already read it, what happened in the previous events. There's some cringe elements here that stand out, I think, a lot more when you've seen the current stuff and you go back and you go back. I'm lost for words for a second. When you go back and review it and you go, oh, I know what this is going to become, it stands out. Where before you didn't know what was going to come and you had faith in Tom King and you thought, oh, Tom King's a good writer, you overlooked it. Like it didn't stand out. I guess that's what I'm saying. Really terribly sorry for my lack of eloquence. And here we get a scene out of Return of the Jedi. Feels kind of, I don't want to say rip off, but it seems very much inspired by the Luke coming to Jabba's palace and I bring these gifts to you, these two droids. Well, actually, it's these two crazy wackos that are part of Batman's plan. And then we see Catwoman betrays, shows her true colors. What he needs to tell you is the lie Batman gave him, gave all three of them. It's a lie to distract you while I stole your precious pirate. So we're like, damn it, Selina. You're betraying the man you love to Bane, his arch enemy. And here she slashes the throats of these two guys, and they're like, "What, you treacherous bitch?" Excuse me. And she says, "I can't hear you," because she slashed her throat. And then she tells Bane, "I tell you how you can finally break the bat," in exchange for getting a plane and money, and she wants to escape because this whole mission, she's going to go to jail afterwards. All these people are, but they're doing it because Batman has arranged to get some leniency on their sentencing, get them some things that they want if they help them. So in this next issue, we see, again, Batman, doing the same thing. This time it's Batman having a letter, I guess, to himself. And he talks about his parents would laugh at him if they saw him running around in this clown suit. And I think, again, it's one of those things that the first time you see it, it's okay, but when you understand where Tom King's going with it and what his intentions are, it becomes more cringeworthy. And you're like, he says here, how sad, how stupid, how immature, how hilarious all of it is. I want to laugh too. Do you know how much I want to laugh? The art is beautiful. But it's a lot of, look at this, all these full page spreads, and these are not, this particular part's not truncated. This is how it is. Now, I don't know why they try to do frames here where they did a full page before. Then we cut over to a first person perspective, and Batman's, he's charging out of the water at all these guys with a higher position, all with machine guns on him, but for somehow they just can't hit him. They must have went to Emperor Palpatine's school of stormtroopers, because I don't know how you could be that bad of a shot. He gets out of the water, he beats them all up, and just visually, if you ignore all the text, it's really cool. But the text is counter to what's happening. The text is almost like Batman just revealing, not quite shame, but just sort of like, the problems in his mind. He's not, I don't know, it is kind of like shame. And then you get to the end part here, and he says, it's not funny. It's the choice of a boy, the choice to die. And what he's talking about is previously in this letter that I didn't really read to you, is that he was 10 years old. He had razor blades and he slit his wrists and he was going to kill himself. And he decided instead to become the Dark Knight. So now he's like, I am Batman. I am suicide. And you're like, what, Batman? And again, when you don't know the intentions, when you're just like, this is a good Batman story, you haven't seen the future, you're not looking at this in hindsight, it's a little cringy. You're like, it's not quite right, but knowing where it's going, you're like, oh no, oh my God. And you, Cat, you know, because you've made that choice. You can see it in another. You can see it in me. I can see it in you. So you're right. When we kiss, the pain goes away. Because for a moment, we share our deaths. And for a moment, we don't die alone. So Batman has just beat up an literal army of people on Santa Prisca. I don't know if there's any guards left standing. Then he shows up in Bane's throne room, and he just simply collapses. And he's, you have been betrayed. You have been defeated. But what next, Batman? And Batman's just on his knees before Bane here. And then we go to the next issue, where it starts off and we see the predicament of his Suicide Squad team that is all seemingly lost. Bane proceeds to beat the crap out of Batman, WWE style, and leaves Batman crushed on the floor for a second time. And he tells Batman that, look, you need Psychopirate. Psychopirate will make you better. I don't know why Bane wants to help him. He's just like, all you have to do is tell me that you want to be happy. Tell me you want to be brave. Tell me you want to know. You want to know that you can always stop. Tell me what you want. I want to break your damn back. It starts to get corny by this point. I haven't read all the times he's done it, but that triggers something. And what happens is this has been kind of like part of the plan all along, and everyone's now in place. And Selina has been a ploy, and she gives him the cue, and she breaks Bane's back. Again, this is one of those things that probably in the moment, years ago, a couple years back when this happened, we didn't know where Tom King was going. We're like, oh, okay. But in hindsight, especially now with, the way Superman is being written by Bendis, where Supergirl's always saving the day, we're seeing here Batman, he can't deal with Bane himself. Catwoman had to. And Bane's now sitting there defeated. Now they're getting Psychopirate. Now Psychopirate's just like, haha, you can't stop me, And we start to get the inklings of the nine panel page of the headshots that Tom King will become famous for. Now here it's not a big deal because again we didn't know about it. It's used sparingly, and so we don't have the same view that we do, with the hindsight, and we see why Ventriloquist was part of the team because Psychopirate can't influence him. And I thought this was really, really cool. Ventriloquist only listens to his hand, and so he's the one that takes out Psychopirate. And that was pretty neat. It was all part of Batman's plan. And now, but the problem is now the hand is out, and Ventriloquist, because before we thought he was kind of cured a little bit, but that's not the case. But now we know why Bronze Tiger was brought along the mission, because he's there to stop the Ventriloquist. Everyone has a part to play, and it's like a perfect part. It comes down like almost like a really cool heist movie, or it's not a movie, it's a comic, but the way Ocean's 11 is, where each person has a thing. Batman perfectly placed everyone. It's a little bit contrived, obviously, like getting shot, planning to get shot down, planning to have your back broken. These are all stupid things in reality. But in the world of comic books, it works. And at the end, we see Batman confronting Bane, and he repeats to him kind of what was told to him. In the coming days, you will be tempted to leave the comfort of your home to seek out a monster. But listen to me before you get yourself hurt. You don't have to do it. You can stay safe for the rest of your life. All you have to do is remember, you're brave, you're happy, you can always stop. And so he just dunks on Bane right there. And it's kind of a feel-good moment. But of course, now you see look on Bane's face. This is a guy who's triumphed over adversity. This is not a guy who will back down. This will just make him stronger. And then on the right side page, we see the goofy antics of, I forget these characters' names, but they're basically like a Harley and Joker analog that we'll see Tom King later on do with Harley Quinn and what's her Poison Ivy, but there's a scene, that Batman kisses Catwoman after she's like, well, what promises have you made to me? And she's like, the pain, and he says, I know, but we can't. You're right. Between what I've done and who you are, well, it's just impossible, isn't it? Which, of course, now we know this is going to be the story of proving that that's not impossible after all. And then we get an epilogue scene of Bane crushed on the floor. His men come in and he asks for venom. So he's going to get back on the venom and crush Batman. Now, this other cover, look at this cover here. This cover makes me cringe. And you might go, why? And well, because look at Catwoman. Now, I know Catwoman is a full adult and whatever, but this picture, this drawing of her makes her look like she's 10 years old, maybe 11, She looks like a little child. That baby face, that is a child's face. And it looks creepy as hell. Like, I get it. Batman's not a pedophile. Catwoman's an adult, but this artist didn't do that justice. That is a child's face. So it starts off here. This is called Rooftops. We get another story. It's this trade paperback, I Am Suicide. The I Am Suicide story is over now, and we're now having a story between Batman and Catwoman. And again, look, we got Mitch Gerads now as the artist. It's going to get more into the pretentiousness that will start to dominate Tom King's Batman later down the road. And they're having this whole love story between Batman and Catwoman. Look at this full page shot for a kiss like that. Now, to be truthful, this is a bit of a love story. It is a bit sappy, but honestly, I thought it was pretty good. Especially if you take it in context of not like every issue being like this. If you just take this as a single issue, I'm like, okay, I can have things like this once in a while. It's a different Batman story. I'm not really against the Batman-Catwoman relationship. I'm against their idea of settling down and being married and having kids and all the goofiness that, affects the comic book. It will fundamentally change what Batman is, which would then fundamentally destroy what Batman is as a comic book, as a piece of entertainment. There's a reason why in certain types of mediums, characters don't change and evolve. Bart Simpson will always be a 9-year-old little brat. That's what makes Bart Simpson who he is. Batman needs to be sort of frozen in time right here. If you want to tell, an Elseworld story that's 10 years in the future where Batman does marry Catwoman, they settle down or whatever, that's fine. You can have those types of stories, but in the ongoing continuity, you can't screw it up. You got to be careful on some of the things you do, because if you evolve characters too far in any given direction, it means that you have to destroy some of the previous elements. Okay, moving along. I had an interruption. Now I'm back. One final thing on this page I just wanted to mention. I really like this scene here, where the lower right, where Catwoman says, "What do you want to do?" And then Batman peers over her shoulder, sees the bat symbol. Well, I thought that was just, it got me a chuckle. So of course Batman wants to fight crime, and he comes to the Clock King, and Clock King is like, do you see the time, Batman? Blah, blah, on your side. And I've planned everything down to the letter, but he didn't plan for Catwoman. And, and she's like, are we done? And then, of course not. Magpie, Signal Man, Amygdala, Gorilla Boss, Ten-Eyed Man, Kingsake. And then they switch places, and they have to do Catwoman's turn. And they go and rob this cat. Turns out that the apartment actually belonged to her. It was all kind of staged. She kind of just robbed from herself, which, of course, side skirts the moral ambiguity of this all. And it's kind of fun. This actually, in a vacuum, this was a fun issue. It's the foreplay of Batman and Catwoman. It's a little goofy. I'm not sure I really want this in the continuity comics, but like I said, for a single shot story, it was pretty cool. Then it gets a little bit cringy here as Tom King tries to write a love scene, and it's just, I don't know. I don't. This is not why I read Batman comics, I guess. I mean, some people are gonna like it. It didn't ruin the book, but so that's the end of that story. But there's a little bit of foreshadowing here, because we see the bat signal's up, but Batwoman's busy getting it on the roof. He's ignoring the crime that's going on, all for Catwoman. And then Rooftops Part 2 picks up where we left off. And this gives, you can see just from these pages, this is, this is down that slippery slope of the pretension. We got the square grid, 6 and 9 panel grids. Mitch Gerards is delivering the pretension. Look at this. It's just, this is what we see in, his modern books. Now, the dialogue and the writing isn't so much that way, but it, like I said, back then you couldn't see it coming, but now with the advantage of hindsight, it seems so clear. This girl that we see here is Catwoman's, kind of her sister. It's when she was in the orphanage, and turns out she's the one who actually did the killing. Batman's done his detective skills, which is cool. To track this down, he's trying to find Catwoman because she's run, and he finds this girl, and he's like, look, I gotta find Catwoman, you're the only one. She's like, okay. And then she pulls out a knife and slashes Batman's throat. And it's not necessarily cringeworthy, but it's just like, really? Batman? This woman just gets the drop on Batman? That seemed a little bit unbelievable. I mean, this guy literally just got done beating hundreds and hundreds of professionally armed soldiers, and this little woman gets the drop. Batman slashes his neck. He lies bleeding on the floor. For whatever reason, he doesn't bleed out. He falls, and Catwoman catches him, and she makes a statement. Bat, you see bats, always upside down. Didn't I tell you? You catch me. And he's just like, ugh. And then we get the explanation of who the girl is, and, Selina trained her. So, so she was so skilled because she trained a little bit of martial arts with Selina that she was able, apparently, to go to Kandak, which is a made-up Middle Eastern country in the DC universe, so they don't piss off any actual real Muslim countries. And there's a terrorist organization there, and she kills them all. That's the 237 people. So just apparently you get a little bit of self-defense lessons, and you become a super badass, and you can go kill an entire terrorist group. Like, what do we even need Delta Force for? Like, we just... And Tom King is supposedly CIA. I don't know. It's just kind of ridiculous. And then we've got the end of it where Batman is going to start down the path of his ultra depression. And, he says Selina stole the night. It's just, okay. We'll wrap up here with the cover gallery. There's not quite as many as in the first book. They're all Tim Sale. This was a good book, honestly. I mean, I make fun of some things and what have you, but it really was good. These first two trades are solid. Absolutely recommend them. Like I said, some of these things that I'm pointing out here are only really evident because we know where Tom King ultimately ends up. So we're at the end. I hope you're getting something out of this, enjoying, looking back at these books. If you're following Batman still, I don't know. I'm kind of enjoying looking back at these and seeing them with the advantage of this hindsight and trying to detect, how bad is it really? Where does it all go wrong? Because I believe Tom King is a good writer. He has it in him to be a good writer. That first trade paperback, those first 7 issues were solid. This is 7 more issues that are solid. Plus there were some issues skipped, that I didn't cover because it was the Night of the Monster Men or whatever. That was a big crossover. So, I mean, we're over a dozen issues into the series so far, and it's still good. So I'm going to try to do this weekly. I know this was longer than I expected, but it was 7 issues. So if we divide the total runtime here by 7 issues, it's hopefully comes out good. I'm rambling, which is what I tend to do at the end. Sorry about that. Thank you so much for watching. Leave your feedback, comments below, and look forward to next week, another installment, and we'll cover the entire Tom King Batman series. Thanks for watching.